All right. Hello, hello, hello. Just getting settled. How's everybody doing today on this fine Wednesday? Hopefully, all good. Ooh, my dark reader needs to be turned off. Nice. All right, welcome everyone. We'll just give it another second before we get started. Welcome to the latest Lilypad AMA. We are super excited to have everybody here. We got the famous Logan Lentz also joining us. Welcome.
Hello, hello.
So yeah, the main intention of this AMA is to provide a face-to-face time with people from the Lilypad team, so that the community can ask questions and get stuff in front of us, get our attention on certain issues if they need to be talked about. So please, at any point, feel free to jump into the chat. We also have invited some of the Lilypad ambassadors and other community members to join the AMA to talk about Lilypad modules they're working on, projects they're building on the network, open source contributions. So yeah, it's a really an open time, and so we would love to have people from the community join. So reach out to us on Discord if you're interested, and jump in on the next one. As everybody knows, we have an AMA every Wednesday. This one is so Logan and I alternate every other week with Steve and Tao Sheng, who do an AMA around 9 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, I believe. Maybe it's 10 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, for our friends in Asia and our friends in even Eastern Europe and across the world, to make it a convenient time for everybody. So with that, let's jump into the Lilypad vision. So first of all, the whole point of this AMA, we kind of briefly just jump into what Lilypad is for all those who haven't learned and haven't heard. And then Logan and I talk about kind of what's going on in the network, what are some of the exciting things that are happening, and then what's the engineering team up to. Of course, everybody wants to know. And so that's kind of the agenda for today. So what's the Lilypad vision? Short and simple: build accessible, efficient, permissionless open compute. So the Lilypad network believes that compute is something that needs to be open and not necessarily controlled by a few large entities. And so the Lilypad network uses crypto economic incentives to incentivize GPUs from around the world to join the network. These GPUs are typically, something from a 20 series or a 30 series NVIDIA card up to A100s and H100s and above. And so the intention here is to, on the one side, help people monetize idle GPU capacity, and these could be individuals, these could be businesses, large data centers. We do have partners who are onboarding GPUs from, secure, low latency data centers that provide, enterprise grade service. And then we've also got individuals, including Logan and I, who run nodes on the network, in our homes. And so the Lilypad network really benefits from a distributed cloud network, really pushing compute as far to the edge as possible, which, as everybody knows, you can't really get around the speed of light problem, right? And so edge computing, content delivery, and then of course, what we're doing, which is using peer-to-peer networking to create kind of like the ultimate edge network in the long run. We believe that model will not only win out, but will provide a lot of benefit to humanity. People can monetize their compute capacity, and businesses and startups, individuals can get very low cost, high performance compute. So yeah, that's really our what we're excited about. That's our, that's why we're here. We're building products on top of that network to make it easy to use for machine learning engineers and for enterprises, stuff like that. And so there's a lot going on. And right now we are in our incentivized testnet. And so, we'll get into that here in a second. But real quick, wanted to talk about the architecture of Lilypad. How does this, like what I just said, how does this really work? So on the left side, we have compute clients. So those are people, machine learning researchers. Those could be businesses trying to run models for, run agents. We are getting into a little bit of fine-tuning models at this point. So doing some additional types of training for models. And so on the left side, you have compute clients who can access the Lilypad network with a variety of tools. We have a super awesome CLI, Lilypad smart contracts, and API SDK. A full SDK is on our roadmap coming up in the future, as is the SaaS layer, which is, our intention is to build a very easy to use place to not only access compute, but also run AI models and add new models to be run on the network. the main customers of Lilypad at this moment, and the main sort of use cases are around running AI models, and so you can run arbitrary programs on Lilypad, but of course the use case here is highly valuable for running AI models. And so anyway, we want to make that super easy for even individuals who are not blockchain, who aren't familiar with the blockchain industry, who just want to run compute. And then on the far right side, we have the compute provider, right? So that's the GPUs and the CPUs, of course, the servers. And these are our resource providers, as we call them. And the resource providers make up the network. I believe there's about 600 or 700 active resource providers at the moment. I know there's over like 1,000 addresses that have joined at one point in time. So we're really excited to have spun up a pretty large network pretty quickly. And the intention is to grow that even more. So in the middle, this is the sort of the magic of how this network works. It's an open permissionless network, right? And so the solver matches the compute client job that comes in. That job has a sort of a need, right? Typically it's amount of VRAM, amount of maybe, some other types of like metrics like that. Mostly it's, I think my understanding is VRAM. And then on the compute provider side, they provide a resource offer. So they say, hey, here's how much capacity I have. Here's the type of, even the type of card that I have. And then the solver will match the job with the compute off-chain. And so that's a pretty fundamental piece of the Lilypad puzzle. And that's using, under the hood, we're using Bacalhau, which is an open source spec that came out of Protocol Labs for creating distributed computing networks. And so we're really proud to be one of the companies commercializing that technology and using it to solve real world problems. Underneath, we have the smart contracts that actually deal with, as you can see, all the stuff, payment, escrow, ERC20 deal details, like all of so the actual compute is then, once it's completed, it's then saved on chain. We use the Arbitrum layer 2 chain to save these transactions on Ethereum. And so it's we provide on-chain guarantees with off-chain compute. And so we really kind of take the best of both worlds to make it a scalable product, for people. And then the bottom part, mediator, is actually something we're still learning if we want to add or not, and how that would quite look in our network. Incentivized testnet has really taught us a lot about this, but essentially the mediator is there to validate that the jobs that are being ran properly. And the intention there would be to penalize GPU providers who are not behaving in the sense of running jobs, either saying that jobs are being completed successfully when they're not, or even running jobs incorrectly. And so I believe the intention is to sort of run a mediator at Lilypad. Don't quote me on that. We're still figuring that out. But I believe in the long run, the intention is to have multiple mediators, community, ran mediators that would then help us do that. More to that to come. The white paper is being worked on. And so I know that's a huge part of that. So anyway, then at the very bottom, you see module marketplace. And this is something we're excited to have coming in the pipeline in the next month or two, which is the place. So to run a model, you basically, you have a Docker image. This is all using Docker. And you basically have to follow, we have some guides. You have to follow a few steps to create a module in the way that Lilypad requires the module to be created as a Docker image. And then, you use the CLI or a smart contract to run that Docker image. And so the intention with module marketplace is to have almost like a decentralized Hugging Face type platform where, individuals who are super technical or even not that technical can come on to this platform and either check out modules that the Lilypad team has already launched on the network. You can run Stable Diffusion, you can run Stable Diffusion Video. We've got Ollama, all the most popular models. We're experimenting with, I believe it's Ollama 4.5B or maybe the smaller one, but one of the newer, the newest ones that are coming out. Anyway, but we want the community to be launching modules, and that's kind of the whole intention here. Is that we're not necessarily the ones doing that. It's individuals who are doing research at universities, at labs, also in businesses, right? Who are creating models, training models to run tons of tasks at their company, right? And so the module marketplace, the intention there is to, create this huge ecosystem of developers. So right now, the big call to action is to join the network as a GPU provider. That's the part that is incentivized currently. And so, we've got some documentation, we've got guides, we've got a leaderboard here, as you can see on the right, which is the kind of the one-stop shop for resource providers to track the points that they're earning. But yeah, it's really an exciting time. The incentivized testnet, we've had some ups and downs, but the community has stayed strong. The team has stayed strong. We continue to push updates, and it's going pretty well. And so, we're really proud of our initial community, and it just keeps getting better. So how to participate? I'll actually skip this slide, but essentially, yeah, you get started, download the CLI. We've got a whole install guide. Here's actually where the resources are. So as I mentioned, the leaderboard is the one-stop shop for all the points information in terms of the daily reward that GPUs are earning for being on the network. And then that post next to it is a blog that explains the entire Lilybits program. So the points rewards program, each one of the points is referred to as a Lilybit. And so you can get into the math and into the slashing, into the schedule of everything that's going on with the Lilybit program in that blog. We do have some, so we've listened to the community. We've gotten a lot of feedback on all the mechanisms that we're using here. And there's a bunch of work on the slashing mechanism that is either being tested or is in the pipeline to come very soon. And so do keep an eye out on our announcements for that, because we've listened to the community. We understand the slashing that we have implemented initially was a little bit harsh. And anyway, so we're really excited to be able to take that community feedback in. And now we have a new plan that we think everybody's going to like. So do keep an eye out on that. Of course, the place to keep an eye out on that is on the Discord. So that's in the top right. Please join our Discord. The updates-RP channel, do follow that. That's where that's our one-stop shop for announcements for resource providers. And so we keep everything there so that there's only one place of sort of truth of what's going on, and you can check that out. Bottom, we got docs, more blogs, and within the docs there's also plenty of video guides on how to set up a node, how to troubleshoot your node, how to set up a personal RPC endpoint for Archbishop Sepolia. That's there's a bunch of awesome stuff there. So yeah, we've been having a lot of fun with the open source program. A huge shout out to everyone who's contributed. We've already seen a bunch of contributions, many from the Lilypad ambassadors. So huge shout out to Lilypad ambassadors. That's one of the big reasons that we wanted to have an ambassador program, was to recognize people who are in the Discord helping answer questions, but also contributing to the project. And so these are the repos that are the main places that you can contribute right now. Of course, the main Lilypad repo. And then there's a few others that are super awesome that you can help us create tools, help us find issues, and get involved. You can filter, especially in the Lilypad main repo, you can filter the issues by the community tag. So we have tagged a bunch of issues that we are referring to as community issues that we would like to incentivize. And we actually do have a rewards program coming up that Logan and I and some of the others have been working on. And so keep an eye out for that, because we do intend on rewarding substantial open source contributions. If you want to come fix a typo in our docs, we would be super happy to accept that PR. But at the end of the day, we want to reward meaningful, big contributions to the code.
Like Alex said, yeah, there's small contributions, typos. Those are always welcome. We're always excited to push that. But we also have some heavier PRs that can happen, some heavier, GitHub-esque. I guess we have a GPU exploratory issue, if somebody wants to go look at it, to explore getting Apple Silicon or Apple Metal X GPUs working in a. It's a PR that is basically we've left it open. So basically it's get as far as you can, see what the feasibility is. You don't have to have an actual code solution, but
if you do, though, there's a bonus there. There will be bonus rewards if you do. But true. Yeah, even just an exploratory into Apple Silicon, we're super excited about that.
Definitely. Very excited about the open source program. Super huge. We've already had some awesome PRs, some awesome additions. So thanks to everyone in our GitHub.
Yeah, even bots. I know we have some ambassadors who've been creating some really awesome bots. You can see there's the open source channel in the Lilypad Discord. You'll notice is where all the open source kind of discussion goes on, and a lot of it. And there's now a bot in there that sort of that will periodically say, hey, here's the issues that have been picked up. Here are the issues that are available. And then we're going to have another one for, I think that's the only one for that. And so anyway, just it's a far and wide. You can help with the typo. You can help with the main core code. You can create a bot. Everything's on the table. So do come. And I've already mentioned this, but the Lilypad Ambassador Program has been amazing. Shout out to Kabla Rasa, who's our Lilypad Ambassador lead, and all the other ambassadors. They are really an extension of the team. they came to the community, they expressed interest, they started helping people in the Discord, and so we wanted to reward that. And now, as I mentioned, we're seeing open source contributions, and we only plan to grow the ambassador program. So the ambassadors will also will be part of the community rewards program that we're working on, and so there's a lot of incentive to help and to be part of that. And so keep pushing. We notice who's participating and who's helping, and cannot appreciate it enough. And so keep it up, and yeah, we will bring on more ambassadors, typically once a month or so. Anyway, the meme-a-thon has gone on. I know people have asked about the winners, and I believe there was a huge influx of submissions right at the end. And so the team has been going through all of them and getting down to the winners. And so apologies that we have not announced that yet, but that is to come very soon, is my understanding. So there's a lot of different ways to get involved. We've talked about ambassadors, open source, run a node, build a module. Like there's a lot of places to participate, and a lot of them are incentivized now, and some of them will be incentivized in the future. And so just reach out to us. We're a very accessible team. Our Ali, who's the CEO of Lilypad, really believes in building in the public, being very transparent, being very communicative. So as I think everyone knows, like we spend a lot of time making ourselves available to the community. So please take advantage of that. There's the Lilypad Discord, of course. You can check out our website, learn more on our Twitter and our blogs. The docs are the best place, of course, to learn about running the network and running the CLI and all that. And we've got some awesome guys on YouTube. So with that, I will stop talking and open it up to any questions. And if we don't have any, we can also jump into some of the awesome stuff that the engineering team's working on.
Busy as always.
Oh yeah. So yeah, Logan, I know yesterday we were working on, if I already mentioned this, we can just talk about it real quick. We have a new dashboard for open source rewards that will be given out. We'll be writing up a blog that basically explains the full plan behind that. But essentially once a month, we aim to give rewards to the people. There's basically the people who are contributing, especially large contributions. So I know we cooked up a pretty cool dashboard yesterday, so I know we're excited to get that going.
As of right now, we just have some. I'm sure somebody might go and find it in our DNS. This new registry we have for this endpoint. So if anybody does go and see it, it is filled with stock data right now. And so, super excited to get actual real data in it. Yeah, we'll probably do that maybe at the end of this month, which is coming up. I don't know what the ball is on that, but we'll figure that out. But
no, that's the plan. End of month.
Yeah. So we just feel like contributors should have a place. And so, especially for the big stuff, we should reward. Why not?
Yeah. So another thing that we're working on sort of like the DevRel engineering side of things is we have this Docker Lilypad resource provider, which has really been an awesome sort of tool for people to run a resource provider pretty easily. We find that it's much easier than running, just the standard like Linux, or even trying to get it working on Windows in other fancy ways. So I know, Logan, that you're working a lot on making that better and like testing it and seeing, because I think eventually what we want to do is only support the Docker resource provider, making it easier for us, making it easier for the community, kind of just all of the above, right?
Yep. We're going through the learning phase, and I guess we've done quite a lot of testing. We've done quite a lot of troubleshooting and benchmarking to make sure that it's the Docker version that we have is actually doing what it's supposed to. But yes, we have a lot more. The mass volume of our nodes are going to be on Ubuntu Linux, which I think is good for now. The more data we get on the Docker version, we already have a lot of community members running it, and very exciting to make our install process a lot easier. There's quite a lot of complex processes going on, and so we still have the requirements of you still need to be using a CUDA GPU for now. You still need to have Docker installed, but instead of having to do a lot other tasks, we want to make it as easy as possible. But yeah, doing it methodically, doing it safely is very important.
Yeah.
When you're
No, 100%. Well, another thing so we had the latest version released 2.6.0, which really seemed to help the RPC issues that we were facing. Like we were having a lot of proof of work inconsistencies, and now you and another fellow teammate Arson had an awesome implementation of basically a round robin of a bunch of public Arbitrum Sepulveda RPCs that is default in 2.6.0, and then also giving people a really great guide to set up your own Arbitrum Sepulveda RPC. It seems like that's going really well, and it seems like that's a good solution to move forward to get rid of. Because I know everyone was asking about hey, these proof of work inconsistencies are like continue to happen. What's going on? And so it seems like we really kind of like got through that scaling problem.
Yep. There's still quite a lot of ways to go in figuring out the best way to manage that. Our network runs pretty chatty, just due to it running parallel processes in a very advanced runtime. And so by that, our network is going to be pretty chatty, and so it will use a lot of RPC bandwidth in general. And so the whole team is very excited. Like a lot of us are going through figuring out like what are the ways that we can slim down some of our usage on that end, which super exciting. We also have to retain the functionality of the network being able to do what it's supposed to do. So we have a guide. If the public RPC is not working for you, if you're sitting behind a NAT table, like particularly maybe on a home network where some networking issues are arising, we have a guide on how to implement your own RPC. Super helpful for people like that who are having networking issues. We found that most of the public RPCs are doing very good, and so thank you to those teams figuring that out.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah. So.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I know there was another update that I wanted to talk about, which is the targeting nodes for specific jobs, right? So there was a push, I believe it was in 2.5.0, where the way that the network was working or works is that a job is placed with when a job comes in, it is placed with the first GPU that can match the resource offer that it needs, and so that makes it difficult if you're trying to test jobs on specific GPUs, or that makes it difficult if you're trying to figure out if a module is working really well on a GPU. And there's a whole list of things that like partners have told us about and individuals told us about. So we now are testing it. It's been put in the code. It's been pushed into production. Internally, we're testing the job targeting now, and it seems to be working. We're having a little bit of troubleshooting and debugging that we have going on, trying to figure out the right way to target it. But we will add that to the docs as soon as possible of how to send a job to a specific node.
Right. From what I understand, I think a lot of that, especially targeting, it'll be used for us internally to verify that nodes are supposed to be working correctly. If there's particular jobs that have like higher resource requirements and stuff, the solver actually does a lot of the targeting itself. And so say if we only have a few Grace Hopper 200s on the network right now, and so if your job requirement says I want something
300 gigabytes of VRAM,
greater than 400 gigs, less than 500 gigs, that's basically like a way that the solver can target. That's the way like our community can target as of already. So that's pretty cool. That's something that we've delved with in the past, but actually having an actual string to where we can invoke it without having to have a job requirement, I find it very helpful.
Yeah, so what Logan means by that is like in that string, you just put the wallet address for the resource provider that you want to send the job to. And so that just makes it really very, very straightforward.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Like Alex said, a lot of ironing out with this feature. It seems that our solver is very, very busy. And so we've had, targeting can be a little difficult with a solver that is holding a lot of records within itself. So yeah, very excited to work on that a little more today with you, Alex.
Yep, for sure. Well, that also like dives sort of into like running modules really well on the network. Like we've been running GPU jobs, CPU jobs, have noticed some inconsistencies across, even with with targeting too, like some inconsistencies running the GPU jobs. So that's something that our team is like spending a lot of time on, and like a lot of manpower, is to make sure that we can run GPU jobs, 100% of the time consistently. Resource offers get matched every time, and as Logan mentioned, that sort of busyness, that queue, is we have we're basically scaling up the core infrastructure of Lilypad as the network grows in tandem. So you can imagine that there's a little bit of friction there as that happens. But our team is on it, and we really prioritize that. So
yeah, I was able to last week, the week before, I think too. I was working a lot with SDXL Turbo on like really necessarily small cards. Super exciting to realize, and to like, I love working with some of these models. SDXL Turbo really was incredible for me, just in how fast its inference is able to compute. Like, I think on just a 4070 Ti, it only takes like a few seconds to generate I think a 720 by 720 image. Incredible, absolutely incredible. That can run on low end cards with not very much VRAM, and so something like making sure that those models are updated and stuff is quite a dynamic operation. And so I love working with that stuff. Super fun.
Same. Yeah, it's heavy duty. It's not always the most straightforward working with Docker and CUDA and distributed compute network Lilypad over here, but there's a lot going on. But and that's the beauty of Lilypad. Really, is we're AI model agnostic, right? Or really code agnostic. I mean, you can run any type. I mean, Lilypad typically operates on a job-based model. It's a serverless sort of mechanism, serverless approach to compute, and so long-running tasks are typically not the best type of Lilypad modules. But I mean, in terms of AI models that can be run, I mean, our head of research is very ingrained in the bio ML community. So he works with a lot of researchers that are studying different types of proteins, doing medical research, either as independents or with labs and universities, and so that's a huge use case that we're super excited to support. Not only like being able to run models on the network, but then have the tooling for the researchers to be able to use the network without too much technical knowledge. But we think our sort of thought around sort of like the whole AI world is like, we're not here to like pick and choose which model is the best, or which model is whatever is the winner or whatever. We're here to just provide compute to run the models, and we leave it to the community, we leave it to the market to decide what models need to be on there and what models people want to run. And so Logan and I think the whole team are with everybody, I think, watching and looking and paying attention to all the latest models that are dropping, and getting them to run on our network as quickly as possible, and then supporting the different types of research communities. As I mentioned, for example, the BioML community, they were showing me some crazy workflows, and we need to invite Stanley and Eric on to talk about what the research team is up to. And I'm gonna probably butcher this, but they're showing me these workflows of a protein. So it's like the end goal is to like research. We have a protein that we need to research and understand how to produce some sort of medicine for. And so these guys will string together like 3 or 4 models. So those are 3 different Lilypad modules. And so the first one will generate some protein based on some input of maybe it's like symptoms, or maybe it's like, I'm not exactly sure, to be honest, but the input is some kind of determinant of the disease that they're trying to figure out, right? And then So RF diffusion is that first model that I'm talking about. And actually in the last Lilypad project report, I wrote about it. It's essentially stable diffusion for proteins, right? Which again, I'm no expert here, but anyway, really crazy. And then they take that output and they feed it into the next model, which is then taking that protein that has been generated and running some tests on it, or doing some protein folding, or doing, I don't know, doing some wild stuff, to be able to then, identify like, okay, what's the big story here, and what can be done. So I'm not gonna like get into more detail than that because I'm probably gonna like just put my foot in my mouth. But check out the last project report on our blog. You'll see there's a really cool flow there using RF diffusion. And I just think, I don't know, when I hear the sort of like leading voices in the AI world talk about the very exciting, very like important AI use cases, and of course agents are a big one. The BioML keeps coming up and it keeps being talked about, and so I'm really happy, really proud actually that like our team has put so much time into supporting that use case.
Definitely taking like the whole network that Lilypad is accommodating really is this big environment that CUDA, that AMD, or NVIDIA's CUDA, and AMD's I guess line of what is their line of AMD? It's called they have this whole new. It came out like at the beginning of this year. Basically, the version of CUDA for AMD. It's basically enabling parallel processing using these GPUs, and especially for medical research, for like you were explaining, protein research, protein folding. It's absolutely incredible, especially with multiple different runtimes. Instead of just having to stick with CUDA, we can use a multitude of companies. Intel, Apple, all of these companies are applying these technologies. All of this technically works on Lilypad. We've experimented with it in the past, and so I think it's just like incredible to read and to hear about all of this insane technology coming out and being able to take advantage of it is
the big question we have to answer and figure out internally is, some of these models, I know Logan, you mentioned this to me, some of these models are enormous, right? And they require like tremendous amounts of VRAM and all kinds of, right? And so that's something that we're going to have to make sure that we are catering to, right? Because we do have A100s, we do have some of these big cards like you mentioned.
That's surpassing even like a single motherboard's ability to I think some of these BioML models are 400, 500 gigs. So not necessarily passing a Grace Hopper, but we only got Grace Hoppers this year. And so before that, it was very, very, very difficult to orchestrate even multiple. How do you get like a model to run on multiple different computers, all in parallel or semi-parallel, unless you want to wait a while? It's just very difficult. And so I can't wait to see our solutions with orchestrating VRAM allotments higher than, to be honest, it's all done within the job spec, and then the resource provider, you can really, especially with data center technology, you can make a single resource provider look very different, just because it says it's one resource provider. It's technically like 6 different nodes with 400 gig networking to each node, to where it seems like when you ask the CPU, how many graphics cards are attached, how much VRAM do you have, the CPU thinks like, oh, it's attached direct via PCIe. It thinks basically you could trick the CPU to think it's one motherboard, and that it's not. It's a whole rack. And so absolutely insane what is happening in data centers. A lot of it is NVIDIA.
Yeah. And so how do you see that, like, from your perspective? And I know like we don't want to like speculate too much on the roadmap, but like because right now one Lilypad resource provider can be one GPU only, right? So even if you have a rig with 3 or 4 GPUs on it, each GPU will need to be run as a separate resource provider with a separate wallet ID, which makes sense considering the architecture of Lilypad, right? I mean, it's a job-based model. A GPU has a resource offer, which gets matched, right? And so it does make sense. But I know that like we're looking at I know we're looking at like multi-GPU type stuff where you have, multiple GPUs on one machine and the best ways to do that. What do you think? Where do you think we're going with that?
Yeah, there's quite a lot of ins and outs when it comes to handling a model on multiple GPUs. It's almost, especially for Lilypad, like we want to simplify as many variables in a lot of situations as possible. And so just if you take the code of a model running on one graphics card, and then you take the code of a model that's running on 2 graphics cards, the same model, the code that runs on 2 graphics cards is 4 times the amount of code than it is to run it on 1 graphics card. And it's just because there's a lot of, oh, I need to move data to this card. I need to wait for that card to compute something. And so now I'm going to, like, while it's computing that one thing, I need to compute something else on this other card. And there's quite a lot of ins and outs. I'm not even an expert in that, but I've worked a little bit with it. There's quite a lot of things going into putting data where it's supposed to be on the cards and getting those parallel processes to run. When you do that on just a single card, as you can assume, it's a lot more simple. So that's why we have what's in place is just because handling on the job side is much easier, just in the whole frame of how this is running. But that's not to say there is a possibility for saying like my job spec requires 2 graphics cards. And you can set that in Bacliao. It's just like we're not telling, like that's not a good idea because the job specs aren't necessarily fitting for 2 cards. I haven't seen a module spec that fits for 2 cards. And it would be, there's quite a lot of things going into that. And so yeah, like in the future, being able to have some software to orchestrate multiple cards will be very interesting. It'll be very interesting. There's not too many reasons why you would want to use multiple cards apart from
like multiple cards as under one wallet ID, like under one wallet address as one RP, or are you talking about multiple cards as in like multiple wallet addresses on one GPU or on one machine?
The multiple cards on a single private key. There's that. Yeah. Unless the model, if there is a module spec that requires it, and that really like there's quite a lot of individuals who will be training on 3 A100s in their workstation. The problem with that, the thing is with that is there's quite a lot of technology and quite a lot of software to orchestrate those 3 cards running at the same time. And so yeah, that's all done within the job spec. And so it'll really be interesting
then we got to cross-reference, sorry to interrupt, but you got to cross-reference, or not, but like you got that going on, right? So the complexity of getting 3 cards to work as one. And then on top of that, you have the crypto economic mechanism of Lilypad that needs to be fair to everybody, right? To be able to identify what's going on that resource provider, how much compute do they have, or I guess CUDA cores, tensor cores, memory, all that, right? And so you're just saying it's complicated to do in a data center alone, and now we're adding a whole layer of abstraction on top, which is this. Well, I don't know if it's abstraction, but we're adding this layer of complexity on top, which is the Lilypad software. And so definitely like one step at a time, right?
Right. Yeah. Something I was looking at is Apple's Metal X GPUs. I was just wondering, I'm like, how much VRAM does Apple GPU? I have an M1 Pro. I was like, how much VRAM does it have? And it's like, I don't know. I'll have to look more into it because I was just doing some quick reading on it. But it basically the Apple's GPUs, Apple's Metal X treats the RAM on the computer as VRAM. And so, like, instead of but they're, yeah, that's the thing. It's a little confusing, and so it's funny to to get into the CUDA workflow of all of this, and then it's like, okay, we're applying like different drivers. We're applying a different parallel running out like computing platform. Like that's all CUDA is just a compute platform, and to apply other ones, it's like the hardware works different, from what I understand. It's just
Well,
wild.
that's so interesting. Yeah, I didn't know that about how Apple Silicon treats memory like that, like on the motherboard. So that would be, yeah. So whoever's doing that exploratory into Apple Silicon, that's going to be a very nutty scenario to keep track of with regards to, like the Lilypad proof of work mechanism, even like how we look at, because we need to reward cards fairly. We need to reward a card based on the value that it brings, and the main value. We also, of course, we like track hash rate, but in the long run, our main value is the cards that are most optimized for AI jobs. And so, anyway, so this adds a whole layer of complexity. I love it. I love it. I mean, this is so much fun. It's just a matter of figuring it out.
Yeah. People are talking about like running models on a Mac Studio, and it has 64, like the base big model has 64 gigs of RAM. And so like 40 gigs would be used for a model, and then the rest of it would be used for VS Code in running like the OS. And so I just thought that was hyper interesting in comparison to what we like in the CUDA space. Essentially, we need our RAM to hand the model to the GPU, and it's pretty funny how different it is with Apple. You don't really need to do the handing because the RAM is the GPU's RAM as well, which is just a trip, in my opinion.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, funny.
Yeah.
Cool story.
Well, yeah, yeah. We're very excited, as you can tell, to see all this unfold, and our team is prioritizing as best as possible to make sure we cover all the bases. We're spread across quite a large surface area. So we have a message here from Sigmund. Hey Sigmund, great to see you. So yeah, integrating Stable Diffusion with generative adversarial networks could lead to more impressive results in image generation. I'm no expert, but that seems to make sense to me. I mean, I know very little about generative adversarial networks, but like my understanding is that you kind of run two neural nets against each other, with one agent winning out versus the other. And I mean, it definitely makes sense if you're sort of teaching these models to come to the conclusion you need in a competitive mechanism is pretty interesting. It would be, yeah. And so I guess that's part of what we're excited about, where we're moving to the next stage of the incentive net, which is incentivize people to create modules, because this is the exact kind of stuff we want people to be thinking about and actually like trying to implement on the network and seeing if it's possible, seeing where the holes are, seeing what we can do to make it better. Because yeah, I mean, I'm just thinking through the workflow, right? Because so like with the BioML engineers, like we Lilypad becomes part of the workflow, as I mentioned, of their entire track of models, right? So in this scenario segment that you're mentioning, I would imagine, I don't know exactly how the integration works of Stable Diffusion with these adversarial networks you're talking about, but I would assume it's just like multiple models being run kind of in parallel. And then I guess the question then would be, do you then take the output of whatever gets run and then do you feed that into the same model to maybe get a better result, or to try to get a better result? So, I mean, those are the really exciting workflows that our research team has been encountering, that Logan has been like playing with, and that like we're pushing that as part of the next stage of what we want to be incentivizing. So yeah, if you can figure out some cool next level Stable Diffusion type training, I mean, there's a lot of use cases for generative content like that. Especially, I mean, there's a million use cases, right? So I'm not going to sit here and like label them all, but like I know that companies, for example, really appreciate and use AI tools that help them generate branded content very consistently. I know it's very difficult to do. So I almost wonder if some of the stuff you're talking about, Sigmund, is like directly applicable to, if someone builds a module, they could even build a whole front end on Lilypad that is for businesses to generate marketing content. And maybe, you create some kind of workflow where you string together a couple different models. We're getting there. We're ready for that. We'll be doing our own version of that. We have this really exciting tool that one of our teammates, Arson, has made, which is an ML researcher workbench, which actually allows you to, add new modules, push them to GitHub, run them, even string them together in workflows like we were talking about. So I don't know the exact trajectory of that product, because I know it does align with the Lilypad SaaS product that we have in the roadmap. So yeah, more on that to come. But anyway, as you can tell, we're very excited about, the more GPUs we have, the more GPU types we have, the larger the GPUs we have, the more use cases we're able to address.
Yeah. We're very excited also for, I was trying to remember what the name was, but it's RDNA. RDNA 3 is like the CUDA of AMD's GPUs. And so what they've released this year, they've released RDNA 3 for the enthusiast gamer AMD cards, which is like CUDA works for the RTX enthusiast gamer cards. And that's what's incredible. That's what's absolutely insane, is that we can run these ML platforms on, 4060 Ti's with 16 gigs of RAM, which are like $400. I mean, you can run a chat model on it. It's incredible, absolutely incredible. So AMD has done that to their line of cards, and so we're seeing a huge influx. That's something that we are also working on.
Yeah, totally. So yeah, it's like we're working on, the GPU supply side of the network, and we're also working on the GPU demand side of the network, because both are very important, right? And so, of course, we've started with GPU supply. That's what's been incentivized right now. But yeah, our team is, we're actually sprint planning now to make sure that we have all these bases covered for, the module building side of things, and understanding the pain points that people experience. I think Logan is very familiar with the pain points of trying to build a module on Lilypad.
Just running.
You don't need to list them all, but it's just, I know you've, just to give you some credit, I know you've kind of helped blaze that trail.
Yeah. Hopefully we have more guides on that in the near future to help people figure out and to work this. It's very simple, but very straightforward, tedious as well.
No, 100%. No, because our vision here is to have the next Midjourney built on Lilypad, or the next, X, right? The next, or X, I was using that as a variable, not Twitter. Just the next, machine learning based product, whether it's an agent, or whether it's for inference, whether it's, some kind of workflow for research, or all of the above, right? We're here to help builders, whether you're blockchain, experienced or not, to build applications that actually use all this underlying stuff we're talking about, right? So all this stuff is great, and it enables sort of like an open platform, an open network for people to run and build applications on top. And so do keep an eye out for the next phase of the incentive net, because our CLI is pretty damn good. We had a JS CLI wrapper API that we were providing. We had to take that down just because there were so many changes going on under the hood that we needed to sort of take a step back from that. And we will definitely, I know we will have that going again soon, just so that it's really easy to just make a call to the network from front end. We actually have some awesome guides. If you check out the use cases section in the Lilypad docs, we've got a really cool guide on, it is a local guide. So you run a Lilypad job from a Farcaster frame. You run that locally. That's a really cool product. It would take a little bit of work because we don't have our API up right now. You would have to wrap the CLI, run it, on a server, and have that. And then there's some other, development that needs to go on to make that all work. But like the ML workbench is there. There's a bunch of cool use cases. So do check that out if you're looking for inspiration. But our tooling is only going to get more supportive of builders, and that includes our smart contracts. Right now we have some smart contracts that you can use to call a Lilypad job. So one of the really cool, unique things you can do with Lilypad is you can run an AI model from a smart contract, and then of course the compute is also validated on chain or verified on chain. So there's a lot of interesting use cases there that we know about internally. We're working on internally. We're hoping the community also gets very excited about and picks up, because like a lot of agent-based use cases and a lot of just interesting concepts that can be unlocked when you have a smart contract being able to invoke some job or some text Mistral 7B job or something like that. So yeah,
absolutely incredible. If a network goes down, you could still run it. If that whole network went down, that's a problem. And so for orchestrating fault tolerant networks, it's absolutely incredible.
Oh yeah, being able to run from a smart contract. No, 100%. Yeah, because if you have a server that's calling some, has like the rep CLI, and you're just making like an HTTP call, like you said, there's there's an issue there where central house point of failure, where that server could have a problem, could go down. It doesn't happen every day, but it does happen. And so yeah, there's like the use cases of being able to call a AI job from a smart contract, which is just fundamentally cool. But and then there's like new use cases that we unlock where all of a sudden you have like an agent with some cryptocurrency that can then do things on behalf of individuals, which that's where things get really nutty. And we are super excited to see that. We are seeing it already in the blockchain world. But anyway, that's the kind of stuff that our platform is enabling, and so we are very excited about it. But awesome. Well, I don't see any other questions. I see what you said, Sigmund. Yeah, as far as you saw, using adversarial networks with stable diffusion can introduce more diversity into generated images. Makes sense. I mean, it really depends on what your goal is, right? If you're trying to just like produce tons of really cool stuff with like tons of diversity, then it sounds like that's exactly what you want. And then you end up having to like tailor what you're doing, I guess, to the use case you're going after, right? So makes sense. Cool. And our products in the future are aiming to make these kinds of things, these kinds of workflows, I guess, easier to run, less of a lift to run, less technical work to go from 0 to 100.
Less power.
Oh yeah, always.
Less power, more efficient.
Less watts.
Apple's M1, Apple's Metal is just very efficient, incredibly efficient.
Yeah. Oh, if we're talking about Apple Silicon. Okay. Yeah. No, 100%. Yeah. So we do take power consumption into consideration. Yeah. Logan and I both run nodes right now. We are noticing how much electricity we're using. We're using some.
If these GPUs keep getting bigger, we're gonna need to hook up, like, I don't know, a power station to them. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, I do know that there's a good amount of Lilypad nodes that are running on like hydropower or other types of renewable energy. So that's great. I mean, we're not like creating another Bitcoin type mechanism where, and I love Bitcoin, but just we're not creating another Bitcoin type mechanism where at scale we're going to be consuming metric tons of energy. But it is something that is on our radar. That's for sure.
Hopefully not consuming needlessly. Hopefully it's for good reason.
No, 100%. No, I do think the Bitcoin network is a good use case, and it's using a lot of renewable energy, but it is a lot of energy. No, there's no question about that.
Definitely.
Cool. All right. Well, hey, thank you so much everyone for coming. Thank you so much for being part of the community, running nodes, building modules, jumping into Discord, creating memes. We had some beautiful art that some of the community members made, like an incredible video about explaining the Lilypad network. This really awesome sort of time lapse of spray art of this beautiful, painting that this individual put together. So yeah, do keep it up. Like we're here for you. We're here for the community. And so when we see that kind of stuff, it only gives us more energy. One thing I forgot to mention, Hacktoberfest is happening next month, or I guess in a few days in October. And Lilypad is part of that and is participating in the Hacktoberfest. So please check it out. We will be communicating it more, I think, on our socials. But check it out. Get involved. As I said, we're all about the community. But with that, I will leave you all. Thank you so much. We will see you next week, or I guess in 2 weeks. But jump on the next one next Wednesday with Steve and Taosheng. Thanks.
Thanks so much. Have a good day.
See you, Logan.
Ciao.